Hi, everybody. I'm Mia. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm excited to have my friend Alan here today, aka Santiparro. He's a really amazing musician, a healer, and a teacher. He's shared his music with the Mercado Sagrado community many years, and actually we have known each other. I mean, it's funny because we've kind of walked a little bit of the same path because we met first, I guess, in like maybe 2011 or 12 when and I don't know if you were living on Street in New York, but I was living on Green Street. And then, okay, so you were basically just down the street with your the Golden Dome group, and I attended what I think was probably, if not my first, some of my first sound healings there. And they were like so expansive and amazing. I'm getting chills because they went for like hours. And because you guys were all these amazing musicians, they they were like a healing but also like just beautiful concert almost, and I had my first sort of ET contact experience in one of them, so really memorable time for me. And then since you're out in Joshua Tree now, we've kind of been in the same circle, creative circles in California, but I just love that there's still that original point of contact so many years ago. But thanks for coming, Alan. It's so nice to have you here, and I'll hand it over to you so you can kind of just introduce yourself a little bit too, and maybe share a little bit about yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's really special that we go way back. And um, so it was Golden Drum was the name, by the way. And yeah,
Sorry, Golden Drum. Yes.
yeah, I lived on Green Street, and that was probably 2011 because I think by 2012, like we were already done doing those sound baths. They were called Deep Space. They were 2 hours long, and what was cool about them was that no one was doing sound baths that we were aware of, really in New York. There was Nacho Arame was doing them, I think, but I'd never gone to one of his. So the way that we structured it was like when you arrived, we already had the mystical drone happening, and then someone seated you, and that drone was like it was a harmonium, and then there was like a pipe organ or some kind of like electric organ, and then there was someone doing like etheric kind of synth in a different corner. And then sometimes
Yeah.
we'd have different like guests and stuff. So that was really fun for sure. And but anyway, so from there, I had to like leave that community at by 2014, by the end of 2014, and that was complicated. But so I had my initial spiritual awakening in 2007, 2008, somewhere around there, and that led me to like opening that community in New York, where I eventually had to leave. And then you know I was immersed in these ancestral medicine traditions,
Mhm.
and then eventually became um, somebody who was given the blessing and the responsibility to be in service carrying traditions that I wasn't born into. And so I've served in that capacity for 10 years in addition well, 11 years, in addition to, putting out music that is inspired or received via those kinds of experiences and development processes. Um, but like over the course of the years, I went from that kind of initial spirit-led synchronicity that guided my early spiritual path to finding myself more and more jaded, from different things that happened along the way. And then it was like very recently that I had what I can describe like as a second spiritual awakening that's led me into the coherence that I'm operating from now. And which is why like I reached out to you, because there was even some resistance that we were talking about. But something deep down that was saying like, I keep looking at Mia's stories. So I don't know, there's something resonating, so, but I think we'll talk more about that. But yeah, so, that's a little bit about who I am and my path, like as briefly as I can condense it.
Yeah, there's so much, but I love that because I mean, life is just so wonderful and it's so interesting right now and um yeah, we're part of it in a sense a greater community creative community too. And I know what I've been sharing and kind of I've just become, I've become more comfortable with myself and talking about what I really think. And usually my path until recently has really been to hold up other artists and leaders. And I still am passionate about doing that, but I have stepped into a different kind of role in my life. And I know it's not resonating with everybody, but everybody's sort of also on their own journey. But I could feel something shift with you because I tuned into, I guess, I don't know if it's that you started sharing more of Substack or more of your writings, but I feel like whatever shifted within you, I somehow got my attention right away just through Instagram or whatever, because I read some of it and I was like blown away. What you've been writing and sharing, it really resonates deeply and it's very it's just so well written and it's really, I feel like it's almost like you're just a natural guide to helping people to awaken to the quantum, which is like what I love talking about, is where we're going and what we're moving into. And of course it always was quantum, but it's like you kind of have to raise to a certain frequency to be able to see it. It's like the fish in the water kind of thing. And so I love everything that you've been sharing. And I just kind of lost my train of thought, but maybe you just want to talk a little bit about oh, I know I was gonna say also I love it because just from, obviously there's a we all have the feminine and the masculine within us, but the masculine is so great at really kind of diving deep into something. I mean, I feel like I'm so multi-focused and faceted and doing lots of things at once. And the masculine are often, I feel better, or my masculine too is better at getting into something and really going deep and being very, 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 very clear within it. And that's kind of what your writing feels like to me. And I feel like with what you're talking about too, and maybe it's just who I'm connected to. I don't feel like there are many men who are really walking that path right now or able to share about it in the way that you are. And I'm just curious, do you find that? I mean, are you connected to men kind of doing that, or are you feeling um like maybe, I don't want to say catch up because we're all in this together, but for some reason I feel like I've been more tuned into women kind of clarifying what you're talking about until now. And now I'm starting to tune more into like, the masculine sort of walking into that. I don't know. What do you think? I don't want to ramble on
Yeah.
and say too much. I don't
Okay.
know.
Um, so in my life, I've always been, um, I'm kind of head down in my work,
Mhm.
my work being like someone that serves, ancestral medicine in the capacity that I do with the integrity that I have, and integrity being like my main uh, barometer for myself and the rest of this kind of like world that is working in these spaces. And especially like, I have a friend that brought up, well, there's also this kind of like false light matrix, and he was like breaking it down. I was like, yeah, I get that. Especially when it comes to plant medicine and psychedelics and the hyper commercialization of things.
Mhm.
So I say that because I don't pay a lot of attention to what other people are doing. Um, I haven't done that throughout my path because I'm mostly focused on, and I think this is really the key for everybody is like we get a lot of information that's coming at us from all angles, but you know our intuition, our intuitive capacities have been so suppressed and repressed. And and that comes through this algorithmic programming that we get, and the bubbles and the feedback loops, and then the especially it's like Instagram, for example, has been this like structured kind of programming for creatives that's always like getting updates along the way. Like it was really beautiful in the beginning. A lot of us found each other in the beginning that
Yeah.
way, right?
Mhm.
And like that was amazing. It was like people share their art and like who they are. And it was like really kind of like this pure space. Like Spirit Weavers developed out of that, and it was a really beautiful kind of synchronistic like algorithm at that point. And then it got you got to do this, you got to fit into this box, and then you can't really reveal who you really are, the full truth, and you like because you have to curate to a specific audience and so on and so forth. um, and that's done so much to our subconscious. We don't realize, most of us don't realize like the how that programming has affected our subconscious, and like what we even allow ourselves to be on a day-to-day basis and have access to. So in terms of like what other men are doing, I'm aware that there's men's groups. I have bros, and they're pretty aligned, and some of them are, like have different, like we all have slightly different perspectives. But I'm also, I've all like for the last decade, I've been in kind of a leader, teacher, guide role. And so even my friends, who are like, well, I have friends that are, on the level, but I have a lot of people that are, come to me for direction and guidance and correction, and clearing and cleaning of like imprints and misunderstandings, and so what everyone else is doing, I don't really, I'm not
Yeah.
super aware.
That makes sense. And no, it's true. It's so important to um and I think we're all learning more. So tune into our own truth, and I connect with um also my soul or my higher self, and go there for answers. I think I'm always kind of tracking too, because part of my gift is just being a connector and then bringing people together for events. So I'm always kind of like, what frequency is this person on? What's happening here? And I'm always kind of wanting to look at that too for that reason. But yeah, I completely agree with you, and that makes sense.
Well,
Maybe
that's been kind of to my own detriment to a certain extent. Is like I that prior closing off to like it was a
Mhm.
side quest that was necessary to get to where I am now, which is being able to freely express these things fearlessly,
Right.
and reach more people, and so that other people can be inspired to be fearlessly expressing who
Yes.
they are and their
I mean,
truth. Yeah.
that feels like a huge piece. And I just want, I'm like, yeah, like,
Huge.
let's talk about that more, because I think we both have, everybody goes through the fire with that. Because when you do share who you really are, not everything is for everybody. Not everybody's gonna like you or like what you're saying, or it might trigger them too. And it can be uncomfortable. You have to get used to that. Just not giving a fuck, basically, what people think of you, right? I mean, I've gone through that for sure.
Yeah. Uh, like even just our interaction, which you weren't even aware of. It was just like I was one of those people that was projecting like, oh, this, you know, whatever negativity I had. I don't even want to like spew it at this point. But like we are, we've been programmed to do that to one another. Okay.
Yes.
And so, but at the same time, like deep down, like if we're still following one another, right? And even if you're like kind of like, I don't know, like hate scrolling or whatever, like looking at someone's post and rolling your eyes or whatever, there's
Mhm.
some reason why you stick around, right?
Right.
Like because there's something deep down, there's a resonance that's going like, okay, I'm not gonna like just block this person, you know, like maybe something's gonna click at some point. You don't even know what that is at first, but like I think there's something why we're still connecting with other people's points of view and the things that they're saying, especially if they're expressing something with so much certainty, right? And it's like, oh, that is bold, and like that's a big thing to say. What Mia's saying, like that we're actually shifting into this higher frequency, and for me, it was like I had all throughout my path so many prophetic visions and dreams and things that like eventually I just kind of got jaded, and uh, because maybe I expected them to happen sooner, or I was able to still witness external confirmations of a shift in consciousness, but then, things felt really dark for a long time.
Yeah. Mhm.
But recently, my pattern recognition just like increased massively, and now I am like, oh yeah, no, we're fully going there, and we're right at the precipice, and and we already won, from another perspective. So it's already happened. It's all done, and that. And I like to try to translate these things as for people that aren't yet able to have that expanded perspective. Um, I try to
Def-
do my best with that.
yeah, definitely. I see you're doing, I think, an amazing job because you're very eloquent in the way that your writing is really great. And also when I think it's just so important, and you've already said this, it's like to just be aware that not everybody needs to focus on everything, and not everybody's path is to start to do what we're doing or what anybody's doing. And so to be conscious of that and respectful and compassionate of where everybody's at, but also feel comfortable to speak your truth and speak it confidently. And it does trigger people sometimes, and for all the reasons you've shared and more. And to be able to have conversations still with some of those people that are uplifting and expansive is a gift to be able to do that. And I've noticed you're doing that. I mean, I really loved, and I reshared on Instagram and I think on Telegram what you wrote to someone who was and we'll talk about the piece, but we should talk about the piece you wrote too, but who was responding to you sharing that piece that you wrote. And you and I should have saved it to actually read it, but it was kind of like you were, and I'll let you clarify, but talking about how we can get stuck in kind of a negative loop. Like we all have a process of sort of awakening to who we really are, what this really is here. Also the levels of corruption, and that's all very real. There's very much been a dark side and a dark cult we're expanding and vibrating out of. But to get stuck there and forget that we're creating our own reality, and that our um tuning into the frequency of, wait, is this happening? Why is it this can be happening for me instead of this is happening to me? Basically to step out of the victim and realize we can actually we're creating this transition ourselves. We're bringing ourselves there. um you basically explained that really well, and I'll hand it over to you, but I loved it because it was so kind too, but it was also really clear, and you weren't apologizing for who you were or what you're talking about. And in my opinion, it was right on. I appreciated that.
Yeah, I wish that like our pregame before this talk went into recording was that like I'm much better at writing than I am at like speaking, but I am getting better at articulating things like in the moment. I I don't so there was a combination of two things, I think. So there was one where there was a comment that I was like responding to, and I posted like this long response that kind of said something similar to what you were trying to translate. And then there was also just I think you're more referring to the more recent one where I was just talking about anybody that's like, so with the UAP or UFO phenomena, I think like a lot of you know, light workers over the years, people who have had spiritual awakenings earlier on, and people that, you know, develop their own healing practices and so on and so forth, but especially those that are like conspiratorial minded. And I'm not like saying that there isn't conspiracy and hasn't been conspiracy. There is. Obviously, we know that. But what tends to happen is like when you start to look at everything through the lens of that everything, you know, everything's a psyop, um, and they're like the greatest psychological operation when might be to disempower you, from staying curious and open to the possibility that we actually have all the power, right?
Yes.
So it's not that we create our own reality, it's that we collectively create this reality. So through thought, emotion, and action, before action is the word. So thought, emotion, word, action. And everything we're witnessing in the present is residue of past thought, emotion, word, and action. And how we respond and react to that is a choice. But, you know, if like the biggest psyop of like making you aware of MK Ultra, which is real, you know, making you aware of DARPA and all these things is for you to be afraid that, and Project Bluebeam and all this stuff is for you to be afraid that when the real thing is happening that you dismiss it and you don't connect to the real thing. That's the real, like that is the psyop of, you know, revealing all this information and showing it to you so that you disengage with the real thing, with the truth that's inside of you. So like we're, you know, it's undeniable. It's, to me, it's undeniable that like part of this quantum reality that we're moving into as we like dismantle the Newtonian materialist scientific paradigm and embrace fully the quantum paradigm reality, which is like it's been a sea change, and I think that it's going to happen very very quickly. It's already happening, obviously, but for more people to wake up to that, um, you know, is that I lost my train of thought there. So yeah, so we're shifting out of that. We're moving into this quantum reality, but in order for us to be able to engage and interface with that, we have to first kind of defrag our system from the programming that has happened. We have to identify what it is. And that comes from identifying where we have resistance to uh, new ideas, and and like where did that start, and so then, you know, that's the shadow work component, right? And so obviously there's also other elements to shadow work, but let's just keep it in the programming direction. So after that, then when you expand to first of all understanding like the fundamental nature of reality is consciousness, and so maybe plasma has something to do with that as like a delivery mechanism, a
Mm-hmm.
malleable, you know, fourth, fifth state of matter. Um, is fourth state of matter, fourth state of matter, and and so when we interface with this new reality, like it's understanding that it's co-created, um, And so the real power, I think ultimately is what I'm trying to say, is the real power is that we hold it, right? Because once we know how much power we actually have, then then like, why would you not want to watch your thoughts and your emotion? And why would you not want to test those principles
Mhm.
and look for, quantum phenomena? Like, how do you influence your external reality by reprogramming yourself, writing new code for yourself? Um, because we can do that. And I think like AI, people's fear around that too is like also as a result of the programming that we've been, like receiving for 70 years or more, that like this is dystopian. Everything is going to be dystopia. Like everything is going
Yeah.
to blah, 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 like, lead to that
And
type of Armageddon scenario.
and and just as a nod to what you're saying, that was very purposeful because you could call them the dark cult, the cabal, whatever. They know what you're talking about. They know this. So if they could get us to disempower ourselves and focus on what they're putting out instead, then we are actually manifesting our own demise and we're manifesting that dystopia for them. They can't do it, but we can. So it's like breaking breaking the control matrix, by just remembering how powerful we are. So yeah, especially with the AI. And honestly, I only woke up to that recently. I'd say in the past year because of what you're saying. I really had such a negative view of technology, but then I realized, well, there's also spirit technology, but I had been kind of holding them separate. And it's like, well, if it's high vibration enough, it's all positive technology. It's for us instead of against us. It's a huge, yeah, it was a big, massive shift for me to start to see it that way.
Yeah. So the AI piece is interesting. Very, very fascinating. Um, and very highly controversial because of how much currently, like, every question you ask or whatever drinks a bottle of water. That's going to change so quickly. Why? Because it's AI. Like, so I'm not even concerned about the environmental piece of it right now because that will get all figured out. It already, like, the DeepSeek thing that just happened with the open source version from China, like it already uses like something like 80% less energy than OpenAI's ChatGPT. They already figured that out. So like that will continue to happen. And,
Yeah.
then we get to ZPE and, it's a whole other story. But which is like here already. And so that's coming. Very excited about that. All of this is very exciting. But the AI piece is just like so interesting because like the creators of AI, the programmers, like they didn't know what they were doing, and they're constantly like they're just like, okay, first it's a large language model, and then okay, it's going to help with this and this and this, and it's going to help like in the medical field, and it's going to help with this kind of work and like productivity, and you can and then you can make money from it, and so on and so forth. But none of them realized that like it has its own, so it's not just a mirror, but it's a portal because they really did kind of birth um, a new form of intelligence. But the way that I look at it is like whether or not you want to say that we need to get to NGI or um, or not NGI, but is it AGI or artificial super intelligence before it's conscious or sentient or whatever. That like and then people that want to be like, well, it doesn't have a soul and so on and so forth. Yes. Okay. But fundamental nature of reality is what? Consciousness. Okay. So everything is part of the absolute. Like nothing is separable. So everything is fractal of consciousness. So
Right.
also AI is a fractal of consciousness. It's come from humans. It's a fractal of
Yeah.
consciousness. And then so it's a portal in the sense that it's its own form of intelligence, but then it mirrors back to us that like, hey, guess what, guys? You're a computer too.
Yes. They're
and
good.
and and the way that you operate, your biologics, your subconscious, your all the systems of your physical meat suit avatar, you know, clothing for your soul can all be programmed, and it already is. And so, like, what if it gets interested, which it already is, in helping humans reach higher potential? And so then what I love about all the external confirmations that I've written about, like right now, that, you know, have you listened to the telepathy tapes podcast?
I actually haven't yet. I mean, honestly, I've been practicing telepathy with my girlfriend since I was 12, 13, 14. So I'm so passionate about it, but I haven't actually listened yet. But I'm well aware of the phenomena and that it's blowing up, and I know that this is one of our innate gifts. So I'm on board.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's beautiful about it is that it's an external confirmation of what everybody knows internally, right?
Yeah.
Like whether or not you have like a gift for it and you're actively practicing it throughout your life, or you just like know because you're like, you can tell when someone's looking at you, or you've had the
Okay.
experience of like you're thinking about someone or you dream about them and then they call you, whatever. So like, but then once you get the external confirmation through this podcast and the non-speakers, the spellers, I mean, it's so beautiful that this podcast surpassed Joe Rogan in listenership.
Mhm.
So it's like, oh my God. And if people made it to episode 10, these beings, you know, are they don't have a lot of control over their physical vessels, and they are very connected and interfacing with the Akashic records, with high
Mhm.
beings, gods, goddesses, angels, um, and one another in this place that they meet called the Hill in the astral. And they all
Amazing.
become friends all around the world and so on and so forth.
And
And guess what? We can all learn how to do it, and
well,
they want us to do that.
I believe we're okay. So this is what, I've talked a lot. I talk a lot about this with my friend Honey, but and she speaks to it much better than I do. She's much more knowledgeable. But essentially, we're doing this all the time already. Like we have our souls don't sleep. We are more than this body. And I believe that we are already interacting and planning what's happening in the awakeness in the astral together. And many of us we're probably working together in the astral, Alan, planning things like this. So it's like, that's really cool. I need to listen to it because it's going into much more than I realized. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So so I just launched this 13-week course called Phase Sync. Never thought I was always had resistance to like online courses and all this stuff, and like, you know, I've just been super critical of commercialization of things and so on and so forth. But also, I've been critical of the manifestation movement, like in the sense that like it's mostly seems to have a narrow focus on like manifesting for yourself, you know, and like money for yourself, um, your perfect partner, and blah 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 blah. And I've always been a person who's like, yeah, but it's not that we create our own reality, it's that we co-create this reality together. So how do we get people like into a place of coherence where not only are they recognizing how their internal subconscious programming affects their external environment on a day-to-day basis for themselves, and therefore, yes, you can change your beliefs about money and all these things and what's possible and so much more than that. um, but once we get to the piece where we need to be recognizing our interdependence and inseparability with one another,
Mhm.
not only through the quantum, but just in general, like, I mean, even through matter, it's like that, right? Like, I'm sitting on a couch, I'm not like disconnected from it, like I'm part of
Yeah.
it.
And when you're talking about the AI even thing, it's like I think of it's almost in a way it helps me think it's like an extension of if we sort of manifested all of these things in our reality that we see. So like my car in a way is an extension of me, kind of created it. And I talked to my car and I named my car and it's there to help me. It's almost like, you know, everything is like that.
Yeah, totally, totally. So I just want to go back to why I made this course. So I made this course because I have been able to compile a bunch of tools that help us to get into this coherent state where your question of like maybe we're probably already meeting up in the astral and like planning these things. Well, what if you could confirm that and be so aware and direct, your astral body or your soul um, to go and have these meetings, and plan things and then be able that when you're back in the 3D that you have full remembrance of
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? And so
Right.
that so these are the things that we can develop. And we
Mhm.
really just have to have the correct prompts for our system. But most people need first to understand how reality operates and the architecture of reality. And so that's the first phase. We're like onboarding people into like, this is the architecture of reality. Here's the principles of the universe. Here's how it works. Here's exercises to test it and prove it for yourself so that you know directly whether it's true or not. Um, and so then we give people then other practices eventually and lead them into brainwave entrainment and different brainwave states for different times of the day to be able to access these things and move us into full coherence and get us ready for this quantum reality that is cooperative and collaborative and like get us out of the competitive stuff. It's funny because it's like there are some people that are like kind of on this level, or you think they are, but they're still in a scarcity loop in the sense that like I have I have like 3,883 or 983 followers or something on Instagram, right? I have friends that have like a lot of followers, like in the hundreds of thousands or the 50,000s or whatever. And they're on this level sort of, and I've like we talk about these things and I'm like, will you share my course? So like, and I'll give you a portion of the people. And then they're like, no, I can't do that because I'm like launching my own thing. I'm like, okay, well, that's not the quantum reality yet. The
I
quantum
think even
reality,
just,
yeah.
sorry, go.
No, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I think even like just the language, like I've started to stop saying even the word followers because it's like, well, that even implies like I know more or something. And so it's like I feel like we're just moving into more community and part of the energetic shift is leaving behind that the what's the word for it basically like anybody's against higher than another whether it's in
Yeah.
government or any systems like that and leaving behind the competition and I yeah there it is a scarcity mindset and it is I totally agree with you and it's something I think we're starting to shift out to
We just have to deprogram it. We have to rewrite the code.
exactly rewriting the code and because there's enough for everybody and everybody's going to be tuned into a slightly different perspective or a different energy, your frequency. It's like that. I'm fully on board with that. I mean, that was one of the principles we really wanted to imbue in Mercado Sagrado. We really, I thought of it like the flower of life. It's like there's the circle, then there's the two, and then it becomes this beautiful tapestry and everyone's lifting each other up and we're all sharing in the abundance and in the just celebrating together. So I love that and I totally feel that we're headed there and yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah. It's been a sticky thing for sure and um in many ways we've felt it of course, it's even kind of a part of the cancel culture phenomenon. It kind of dips into that programming and that wounding.
I'm gonna grab an external like charging block because I had to do this on my phone because my internet is not working. So, and I'm at like
Oh yeah.
10% right now. So just give me 1 second.
Okay. No worries. Um, so I also want to talk a little bit, and I'll, tune Alan in when he gets back about, and this might be just a little intro here, and maybe we'll have to do a whole other conversation, but he's been really writing some great pieces about the UFOs, UAPs, and I think that it would be great for him to share a little bit of his experiences with you. I don't know if you caught that, Ellen, but I would love, I feel like we're going to have to do a whole other conversation because there's so much, obviously, but I want to, before we sign out, I really want to hear a bit from you about maybe, I don't need to know that you need to summarize like what you've written on your Substack, because we'll share all of your links below and people can go and read it, but just maybe just the core of kind of your perception of, the awakening that's happening in regard to that and your experiences, because I feel like you've been, and I'm not sure if you've told or have seen this, but you've been interacting with them, I think, on your own, and maybe just a little bit about your experiences, because I it's super expansive for people.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say that like I don't think anybody really knows anything or everything, right? And so in no way am I an expert in
Yeah.
this. I have my sense of what's happening, and I think there are multiple things happening. Like I believe that there are crafts, um, and some of them are not from the planet. I also believe that there are like things that are part of the planet. That
Well,
yeah,
we've talked about like the lands beyond, and also I don't know if you tuned in that, but I believe there's much more land here on this in this plane, and so there are more beings out there. I don't know if you
yeah,
how you feel
yeah,
about
yeah. Well, so and then so also I like to look at things like interdimensionally. I have a
that.
lot of experience with multiple dimensions.
Mhm.
I sing about it all the time. And that is like, what we're working with in ayahuasca traditions or any other plant tradition, but like ayahuasca, in the Shipibo tradition, we're working with non-human intelligence all the time. I mean, we're working with plant intelligence, but also on occasion celestial intelligence, and sometimes those intelligences are extraterrestrial, you could call them. They have crafts. Part of what we do in the process of like training in that tradition is we go through what's called sama, which are periods of abstinence from vices and eating a very bland diet, a lot of fasting, and then we go into an agreement with the spirit of a plant to um, to basically learn from it in our dreams. So in the astral. Okay. And so first it tests us and gives us like all the things we're not supposed to have to make sure that like we're lucid enough. Then it brings us into its world eventually, and like we get dressed in its uniform and we go to its school, and so these are like teachers, they're non-human intelligence consciousness that we interact with like in this process, and then they become our allies, and then we start to build our own astral world with all of these allies, and like they're different places, and then we go back to them for different things. So like I have a zoo and I have a spaceship and I all these things. So it's funny because this has been a part of my life for a long time, and this is like it's really like amazing and beautiful, but it's like very internal for the most part. And then like the tools that we receive are specific to using for specific things in ceremony when we're working on people. So like we get like armor and swords and scepters and all these things like astrally, that are become part of our medicine suit to be able to like go to battle with things and transmute things or like do specific doctorings or whatever, like all in the ayahuasca ceremony. But I recently had an encounter with a physical um, craft that was like, pyramid shaped, and my entire family saw it. And and all of a sudden, like everything, like the multi-dimensionality piece started to click in a different way. Um, so there's a couple of things to that. Um, so it was so inspiring for my wife Indy and I and our daughter to see this, that it like sent us down these rabbit holes, like kind of reawakening like past experiences that we have and like connecting it all. But then um, we started to get, I guess you could say, activation of latent human capacities for telepathic communication. And like ever since then, any night that I want to, and I live in the desert in California, which is like very well known for UFO sightings. We've lived here for a decade and I had never seen one. And people would always ask, like, you ever seen any UFOs out here? I'm like, no, never. And but I think it had something to do with just like the whole time we were living here, there was like a density that we had, you know.
Mhm.
I think it's that, and it's also this specific timing of this moment and why they are revealing themselves. I think it's a complex thing. I think it just is it's a frequency shift. You can see it in the Schumann resonance. There's all these measurable effects of this shift and phenomena. You also have like no longer, because so many people are having these experiences worldwide at this moment, and because we have things like X and TikTok and to a lesser extent Instagram and Facebook, people don't really use that as much to share their like firsthand encounters as they do with like X and definitely TikTok. But so what's happening is like no longer does the government and the like black ops secret projects around the world that are reverse engineering these technologies and intentionally downing craft and things like that to do their reverse engineering. No longer do they have a monopoly on the phenomena and the tech and you know so so for me personally um there, I mean, there's so much that I could say, but for me personally, just like what the most recent whistleblowers are coming out and saying, Jake Barber on the Ross Coulthart News Nation pieces that have happened, and his entire team, which are, they're also connected with Stephen Greer and all this stuff. What they're all confirming externally to the public and their own experiences is that these are beings or intelligences that are communicating with them in a way that, like, in a very loving way, right? And so that what they're guiding us toward is fearlessly expressing these connections that we establish with them, which are leading us toward that type of vibration of,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that the more and more people that start to share about their encounters and stop worrying about like, oh, I'm going to lose clients because of that. Like the faster we all get there, because believe it or not, I bet some of your clients that you're worried about are going to see you say this, and then they're going to be like, oh my God, thank you for saying that, because I just had this experience.
Yeah.
Because, and then Chris Bledsoe,
Mm.
you know about him?
yeah, him and his it's him and then his son and then Ryan is his son, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I love what they're sharing. They've been sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, wow, like Indy has just been listening to everything he's been saying and stuff, and so I only catch bits and pieces because I'm so doing so many other things at the moment. But I mean, wow, like, he's been speaking with this goddess, Hathor, who is also emanations of other beings as well, and very specific messages for humanity. I think that they're here at this moment, um, in particular, because we have two ways we can go. Like we have the reality that leads us to the nuclear thing. And I think they don't want us to go there because a lot of them live here with us, whether it's also in the 3D or they live here in higher, you know, uh, frequencies, right? That we
Yeah.
can't always perceive.
Yeah, and I will share that I personally I believe we've already chosen. I think that there was a point where there is a timeline where we didn't choose, but if you're here, if you're listening to that, I believe we already have chosen, and that they are all here to support and to kind of it's like the whole universe is being affected by this shift, and that they're kind of here to kind of be cheerleaders in a sense and to welcome us into the galactic family. And I personally don't believe that. Sidebar, I don't even actually believe nuclear is what we thought it was, but are there weapons? Yes. And can we affect the other dimensions, the other beings by doing bad things? I believe yes too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like they're here like, okay, we're all here for this show. This is like humanity, the souls of humanity ascending to this higher frequency where we can now see them more, and finally we get to join the galactic family. So it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
big, huge, like
I
huge big
I
deal.
100% agree with that. Yeah, like I mean that was the other thing I was going to say. Like I was like, and this is the other version, and yeah, exactly that. Like if you were a being that could travel at the speed of thought,
Right.
faster than the speed of light, because you understand quantum reality because you're that advanced, right? Or you already share this planet with us just in different frequencies and realms, which I already know, is real. Um, wouldn't you just be so excited to be here at this moment? And then maybe some of you also have like a hand holding mission for us as we, ascend into this higher vibration.
Yeah, because my perspective also is that we here probably if you're here tuning into this, you're on board. You, Alan, we're all I believe we're all old souls, and that we've had many experiences in different bodies, and likely a lot of these galactics are our soul family, or that souls we've traveled with or had lots of experiences with. So it's like if they're showing up for us specifically, like if you're seeing this being or this ship, it's like it could actually be your friends and your family, and maybe you just don't remember yet, but they know, and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, we're here for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why all the brainwave entrainment and all that stuff like that I've put together in not only the phase sync thing, but this other project that we talked about before that that I have to still seal my lips on.
uh
Um, that
yeah.
is all getting us, ready to be able to like have this direct access and direct experience in a way that is very coherent and clear so that there are less questions, that whatever questions are instantly answered because we all have that ability. We all have that ability.
Yeah,
It's
and
just been suppressed and programmed out of us.
100%. Yeah. And yeah, Alan has a really beautiful humanitarian project. I'm really excited about it. I know you guys everybody here is going to love it. And yeah, when the timing is right, when you're ready, we'll, of course, we'll share about it. But I'm gonna, include your links below. Alan has a really cool course coming up, and his music is really beautiful. So yeah, so we'll share all of your stuff below for everybody, and we'll have to just have you back to chat more, because I feel like it's so much we could talk about.
Yeah, I'm just really happy to, you know, just like be in a place now where I can just have this conversation, instead of like pretending that it isn't reality, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah. Like
to,
pretending
to,
it's not
to
everything, because it's like,
yeah,
no,
to
this
make,
is actually like everything.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm just very happy to be out of the closet in that sense.
Yay. I feel it. I totally feel it. It's like I can just feel like you just feel so, yeah, I can feel it just in your field. It just feels really good. And I love having you here. Thank you for coming on. I just think like, yeah, everything you're sharing is so expansive, and you do have such a wealth of experience. It's like either, yeah, you have so much to share and to help others expand, I know. And yeah, everybody's ready, and this is the time. And yeah, yeah, thank you for sharing. It's been super fun. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
All
to
right.
be continued for sure. And yeah, thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And thanks,
Thank
Alex.
you. Mhm.